Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.
Join our Facebook group, Discovering Newfoundland. Good morning from Come By Chance, Newfoundland. This morning we're going to take Cooper's Cove guided hike.
We're actually on the trail, but they walk from Cooper's Cove to get to the train station. It's a lot of history here.
This guided hike is by donation, and all the money raised goes to the Arnold Cove Food Bank. How great is that? Come learn some history, have a great hike, and help feed some families.
I'm Ron White, and I dress up as John Gilbert. John Gilbert is my great-great-grandfather, and he was one of the first recorded settlers to Come By Chance. He married into the Adams family. The Adamses came to the Gut area in the 1880s, and they had 7 children, and he married one of the daughters, Priscilla, and they were on Sound Island because that's where he was a fisherman. They moved up there, and they had 4 children, but in the 1880s, I think in around 1888, they moved into Cooper's Cove. He was a planter, and a planter was a person who ran his fishing enterprise, and he was able to occupy a cove then and claim it because he was a fisherman and set up his enterprise. And his 2 boys would have been old enough then to help out. So I figure that's why he waited until in the 1880s to move over. Anyway, we are going to leave here now, and we'll move on out to the next site, which is where the new site is going to be, and that's where the hike is actually going to begin. And I'll tell you all kinds of stories on the way. I said, Pop, what was it like growing up here? He said it was rough, boy, it was rough. And I mean, he had the stick and he had his Legion coat on and his tam. The last time he was in Cooper's Cove was 1927. When they got married first, they moved to Cooper's Cove and lived out there with his parents. In 1926, there was some tragedies, and he and grandmother was the only ones left in Cooper's Cove. This monument, before we left out Cooper's Cove that day, he wheeled around, you know, and he said, my grandparents and my parents are buried over the cross over there in the graveyard. And he said, my sister is buried over there, and he said, there's a monument over there of my brother. There's a monument where he got killed overseas, he said, and he said it's over there in the graveyard. And we were sitting down in Sunnyside one day, and I said, Aunt Belle, I said, did you ever know there was a monument for Alexander Gilbert? I said, well, Pop wants me to go across the gut, and I said, locate the monument and bring it over to Come By Chance. She said, I never heard tell of it, but she said, get Fred on the phone, get him to come over, because we're going over there tomorrow and we're looking for that monument.
Wow.
And we were going through the stuff like that looking for the monument. We were about an hour looking around. And anyway, we couldn't find it. The story was, when he told me, Thomas Coffin picked up this monument at the train station up here in Come By Chance. And he brought it out, put it in a dory, rolled it across, got it over on the beach, and it was too heavy to get up on the hill to the graveyards too. So he left it in on the beach, and that was the last thing grandfather had heard about it. We called Aunt Belle back and we said, Aunt Belle, we're going to quit this because that monument could be still done on the beach covered up. Well, she said, you can give up if he wants to, she said, and go down on the beach and sit down and wait for me. She said, I'm not giving up until I find that monument. About 10 minutes, 15 minutes went by. She found the monument. There's the 3 of us standing up here after discovering the monument over in the trees. She was so excited. The town clerk was a student of mine I had in Sunnyside, Brenda. I said, Brenda, I need some help with something. I said, my grandfather grew up in Come By Chance. I said, his older brother got killed in World War I. There's a monument over across the gut. And I said, I want to know how I can get that brought over to Come By Chance. At that time, Joan Cleary, who was mayor, anyway, she said, could you tell me that story again? So I went through the story, told her about it. She said, you leave that with us, she said. We'll get that monument moved. And they went over years later again and moved the monument, brought it over and had it mounted there. It's going to be moved again to the end of the pavement, and that's where it's going to be relocated to, out to a new site out there. And hopefully it'll be done by the end of September. The trail that we're going to hike this morning is called the Cleary Hiking Trail. It's called after John and Pete Cleary. And John and Pete, living right there, they spent many hours back and forth on that trail there. I would imagine Pete cleaned it up, he skied it, he biked, and I mean pedal bike, not the motorized type bikes. And he turned it into a pretty much a hiking trail. Over the years, Come By Chance has had its fair share of industry and a fair share of heritage assets because of the isthmus. And there's only 2.5–3 kilometers between the water here and the water in Sunnyside and Trinity Bay. So anything going across the island from the Avalon Peninsula west to Gander, Clarenville, Grand Falls had to pass through this area. And so the railway passed through the area in the 1890s. And the Trans-Canada passes through there today. And they were exposed to some early technologies. If it got to Newfoundland, it got here pretty fast because in order to move it across the island, it had to come through this little area. So the people, my grandfather and his family included, got access to use the train, which wasn't common back in the 1880s and 90s until it was many years later before a lot of people started moving around on the trains. But they were fortunate enough to have access to the train, and no doubt ended up probably in St. John's sometimes before they went overseas or shortly after. Pop Gilbert, and I knew 4 of his sisters, and Aunt Mary was and Aunt Chris were the 2 that I related to mostly, and got a lot of stories from them. And my grandmother Gilbert gave me a lot of stories, and I'll share some of them with you now when we get further up the trail. I believe that's what love rock is.
So what's that?
They used to come out there and neck and stuff like that. Right here is the gut behind us, right here. Over across, that's the river running in through there. It was where the salmon and the trout and so on. The majority of the people that lived out here in the early days lived over across. You see that meadow over there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where they lived too, and they lived on the flat area. Thomas Adams come there in the 1830s. Thomas Adams had 108 acres of farmland and bogland and timberland over there, and he owned most of the land right out to Come By Chance Point. And the only people that actually lived over there were family members. There was a school and a church. Rare bird population comes in here nesting, and because they come up from down the States, they come up in the winter time, and that's why they need to protect it. When I get out to the river now, I'll explain to you how they had to cross the river. I said, Pop, you never showed me where you lived in Come By Chance yet. And he said, no, you got to go on out the road further. So I come out after a kilometer driving on rough gravel road, and I said, I'll take him down on the gut now. For sure he lived down on the gut, right? Went down on the gut. We were down there for about a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. And I said, Pop, you still haven't showed me where you lived. Oh no, he said, it's further out the road. So he sent me further out the road again, out to Cooper's Cove. We were driving down this road here. And when I got down here, there's a turn in the road. And he said, This is Clayson's turn. Didn't mean anything to me. Anyway, I said, why did he call it Clayson's turn, Tom? Well, he says a family of Claysons lived there, and this is where they lived. Thomas Adams was the first person, and his wife, Elizabeth. John Gilbert was about 100 years later than the first people that occupied that area over there. This garden here, the Claysons, Tom Clayson was a grandson to Thomas Adams. The local people called it Tom's Garden, and they always thought it was Tom Coffin, but it wasn't. Tom Clayson lived out there. Frank Adams wrote about it in his history, and he told about around 1910, Tom Clayson moved in from out there, and moved in and occupied one of those houses there. So that makes it the story why this is called Clayson's Turn. Up in those trees, that's where the monument used to be too. Right here, they had a pole up 25 feet high, and on the other side they had a pole 25 feet high. And across the pole was a steel cable, and they would get into that, and they pull themselves across with pulley system to the other side.
These are called ghost plants. They're pretty rare in Newfoundland. You will find them on a lot of trails though in this area.
I do believe in divine intervention now. I said, I'm doing this, something that I would never have thought I would ever be doing. And writing stories or telling stories was never part of my plan in life. But I'm doing it. And I think this is divine intervention. Back 2 years ago, when I started doing the hikes first, I had these 5 people from downtown Toronto contact me. They wanted to do a hike, a guided hike. Sunday evening, I left Clarendon, and I come up and I got in the house and I said, now, I need to go to Cooper's Cove, walk out, and get my head around what I'm going to tell and where I'm going to tell it and everything else. And I was coming out the trail by myself and I was thinking all the way out. And when I got here, I made the turn to come down, and there was something that was on a rock that hadn't been there the last time I was out. I picked it up and I come down here and on the bench and I looked at it and I said, I took off for home, back to the house. And I called Alice and I said, Alice, guess what? She said, what? I said, I found something out in Cooper's Cove this evening. You're not going to believe me.
These were just some of the stories that were told to us today. Come and take the guided tour, hear the rest of the stories, and learn a little history along the way.